Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Namaste Tomorrow. Friends, corporate and startup collaboration is not a new thing across the globe. Corporates have been partnering with startups either through corporate venture capital or corporate innovation, leading to many success stories of new technologies and innovation. This has become increasingly popular in recent years in India. More and more corporates recognizing the potential of startups to drive innovation and growth. To know more about how corporates are collaborating with startups and such collaboration is heading in the future, we have today Aashutosh Aagarwal, lead strategy and growth at Zuari Industries Ltd. He has an experience of more than a decade in similar role. As a lead in strategy and growth, he is responsible for decision making and execution process. With his decades of experience, he has wide range of exposure and has seen how technology is moving. Welcome, Ashutosh, on Namaste Tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Utpal. It's been a real pleasure speaking on this forum today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, it's our pleasure, and we look forward to learn a lot from you. So, Ashutosh, the first and very basic question to you is, can you tell us a little bit more about your role at Zuari Industries and how you centrally look into what you are looking into?
Right. So let me give you a brief about Zuari Industries. It is important to know also about the company. And Zuari Industries was incepted in 1967 by the eminent industrialist Dr. K. Birla, and everybody knows him well. And then his legacy is now being carried forward by Mr. Saroj Podar, who is our current chairman. So if I split the business into multiple categories, then we have a sector called agri-business that we are into. Then we have another space which is direct businesses that we are operating, and there are other businesses. So in agri space, we have holdings in ZACL, we have Mangalore Chemicals Fertilizers, and through a joint venture we have Paradeep Phosphates. And then if I look at the structure in other businesses, we have 100% subsidies and joint ventures. Two of our prominent joint ventures I would name are Forte Furnitures Private Limited, which is a joint venture for our furniture business with Forte Poland, which is one of the largest furniture manufacturer in Poland and all of Europe. And the other is Zuari NVN Biofuels Limited, which we have recently entered into to create grain-based distilleries in Uttar Pradesh for 150 KLPD, and we plan to expand that platform to about 1,000 KLPD going forward. And then we have subsidiaries, 100% subsidiaries like Zuari Management Services Limited, which provides end-to-end HR management, including executive search, HR analytics, payroll management. We have Zuari Insurance Broking, which provides another wholesome solutions to insurance from health, personal, individual, and corporates of all kinds. We have Zuari Stock Finserv Limited, which is stock broking arm of Zuari. So these are some of the small business that. Then we have an EPCM company, which is Engineering Procurement and Construction Management Company, which is Simon India Limited. And the direct businesses category that we operate are two. We have one sugar, power, and ethanol integrated platform at Gobind Sugar Mills, Lakhimpur. We produce a lot of sugar there. We export a lot of sugar and related products from that. And then we have about 125 KLPD distillery there where we manufacture ethanol for this ethanol blending program by the government of India. And then we have some real estate business that we drive within Zuari Industries. So there is a whole gamut of businesses, as you see when I speak about Zuari Industries, and we are like a small world of possibilities that exist today under the leadership of our managing director, which is Mr. Athar Shah. And surprisingly, people may not know that Zuari name is derived actually from a river in Goa, which is considered to be very pure and pristine. So we try to portray those qualities among our services that we provide. Now, coming to the role that I perform at Zuari Industries is being as lead of strategy and growth. I very closely work with the managing director's office. It is like an extended arm. It's like a corporate center which is to look at strategic investments, mergers, acquisition, digital adoption across the group, then transforming the business, optimizing them, trying to identify the key drivers of the business where they can expand, or currently having cost related measures which we can optimize, and also look at no growth strategies for the business, both in terms of organic as well as inorganic growth. And this is what defines my role purely at Zuari Industries, which is to define key business drivers, optimize them, digitalize them, and then look at growth verticals within those businesses. Can you hear me, Utpal?
Right. Sorry, I think so. I was having some kind of a little bit of technical glitch, but yes, thanks. I think so. Ashutosh, it's like entire conglomerate, working together, various streams, various businesses. My next question is basically just to understand, when you are looking at so many businesses together, and obviously, you are looking at a growth in each of the business verticals. How do you look at partnering with startups either through a corporate venture capital or a corporate innovation program, which is now making inroads, and all major corporates and conglomerates are looking at it very closely.
So I think when you look at CVCs or corporate innovation programs that you talked about, and you are one of those leading platforms, I think the concept that you have brought, and I came across it from your platform, was exceptional in today's day and age, where you bridge the gap between the corporates as well as the startups. So things that come to my mind is, first, that it is direct investments that we look at. Direct investments could possibly be wherein we find that there are business synergies or there are new business models which are coming up, and we can actually look at growth from these kind of companies which have some innovative ideas and technologies. Then this is one of the models that generally people look at through these CVC and CIPs, as you may be aware. The second, at Zuari, what core I can say we look at is strategic partnerships, and in this strategic partnerships we look at leveraging expertise of both partners together, for the startup as well as our expertise that we have. So they will have access to our markets, they will have access to our resources, they will have access to probably our understanding and strategy that we drive across the group for the business optimization, etc. And then they can bring in that perspective from technology point of view and the business that they are into, or the problems that they are trying to solve. From that, the company resources such as capital, distribution networks, etc., as I told you about, can be leveraged together. So this is more of a strategic partnership that we think is good for both of us, and we strive on that. The third part where the startups we look at can contribute is that we incubate them directly. For example, if somebody is to initiate process of being a startup, then they might not have that kind of capital where they can incur O&M expenses. They need some office space, they need some infra, they need some kind of mentorship as well, which you are also providing and Sanjay is also providing regularly to your startup firms. So that kind of incubation we can create in our platform at Zuari, and then we can help them grow and in turn seek some kind of you can say knowledge sharing in terms of new technologies that they can implement, and we can be the pilots for them if they can enter into our kind of industries. For example, we have a company called Texmaco Rail, which is manufacturing of rail wagons across the group. So if a startup is looking at manufacturing new tools or metals, then they can obviously come with us, see if they can experiment some kind of manufacturing setup there, and explore possibilities of expanding their own horizons. So I think these are the three points where Zuari looks at. More importantly, we are into, I would say, first the strategic partnership and the incubation type of startups we are more inclined to assign to.
So thanks, Ashutosh. I think so. It actually lays down, the entire structure, and I think so. This is what we have been seeing globally and getting implemented in India, and probably, you'll also be, one of the torch bearers, who are really believing in startups, how to partner with them and how to collaborate with them. Uh,
Right.
so, Ashutosh, my next question is, when it comes to startup, do you, and obviously from your perspective being on the corporate side, do you believe startups can play a catalyst role and in the growth journey of a corporate? And if so, then, in what shape and form?
So I think startups have now become a fundamental catalyst to growth of corporations, and now one cannot see themselves not engaging with startups anymore. In isolation, I don't see that corporations would want to exist in future, or probably they have plans to really take or scale all along them because they are very complex structures. They are heavy in decision making, while startups are much more nimbler and they are agile. So in that perspective, I see they play a really a good catalyst role right now because they bring in fresh perspective from the market. They bring in new technologies. They have got disruptive ideas. Also, they can experiment very, very quickly. So I'll give you one example. We are trying to set up something new because we are into sugar retail, and we are entering or trying to expand our horizon into non-sugar business as well. So while I was discussing or planning about this business plan with my team as well as my seniors, I came across that there is not a single point in the value chain where a startup is not fitting in the bill. I have to approach, for example, logistics supply chain. A startup is already available and I can integrate, and they are responding really well. For sourcing itself, there are multiple startups which can help me source right quality, right material. For payment gateways, integration with the technology, for even a CRM, as we call it, we have a startup. For inventory management, order management, we have a startup. So they have it themselves ingrained into the system, and everybody's, I would say, first point is always to now look at a startup, see if they are already providing this service, and hire them, because it's much more easier for them or for corporations to see a customized approach with an already existing technology, right? So it blends in well. They can tweak the bills very, very quickly, and for that, I see that the catalyst role that startups play is inevitable going forward. Also, I see the new ideas and approaches that have established uh, by the startups are much more relevant today to the corporations like ours and anybody else who is there in the business for very long.
No, absolutely. I think so. Very valid analysis and rightly put that, startups have a role to play in the entire supply chain. They can
Mm.
actually help corporates in each of the value propositions. Uh,
Right.
then the next question to you is, startups will always feel, some kind of a reservation, some kind of a
Mm.
hesitation, when it comes to partnering with corporate. So, from
Right.
your perspective, what's your take? What a startup need to know when they are actually stepping towards collaborating with a corporate?
So as startups, I think for them it's a difficult one because every corporate have their own attitude or maybe identity or a structure. But as a generalist, I would say that first that startup should always look at while approaching corporates is not just with a closed mindset of having or getting equity, because sometimes it happens that we are so determined by our operations or expansion plans that we only focus corporations as big players, big money, let's get it. So I think that has to change. So alignment of goals in turn is very, very important. So we are into agri business. So if an agri tech startup comes in and he's trying to solve our problems, right, which we are facing with the farmers, that is where alignment of goals happen. So that is first click point where every corporate can really look at startup from a positive perspective. The second that they should be aware of definitely is their intellectual property, which is I feel has taken somewhat a backseat to my view when I interact with startups, and they want to pitch or market themselves as if they're the best in the world. However, they may be or may not, but intellectual property is something which they have to protect with their innovation. And when you push it to startup, it may so happen that it gets easily copied. So, as a founder of a startup, you should be well versed that yes, it is copyable or not. I have evaluated my self or my business to that level where my this rights at least remain protected. So when you enter into discussions with corporates, have proper legal documentation, have disclosures signed, so that you don't end up on the wrong side, right? The third point which comes to me is resources and expectations, and which I also face. See, corporates like us or even large corporates naturally have multiple focus areas of their existing operating businesses. And when it comes to motion, it becomes pretty slow as compared to the startup, which is very focused in one particular area. So, how many resources would be deployed by the corporate dedicatedly to figure out the startup? Who is the person who is decision making? Some decision maker. Sometimes it happens that the decision maker himself is pressed down, and he gets frustrated, so he drops the idea of getting into a touch with the startup. So there are multiple things that are happening that way. An expectation for a startup should be that they should be very, very focused on what is this that they are expecting from the corporate. It should not be that the world is there for them, but it is to be limited to the context. The interactions have to happen in that manner so that it can yield a fruitful result. Fourth point to me is which I also faced when I was talking to startups was clear communication. So sometimes yes, we can go into an investment, and sometimes we say that no, we will look at strategic partnerships, and none of that happens. So from that perspective, if the communication is clear, even if the corporates say that yes, there is a delay at my end or there is a process which is going on, startup should have, or founders should look at having a conversation of learning experiences from them, not just a transactional relationship of having a equity relation, or for asking equities or strategic partnership. I would say it should be a more of a learning experience in terms of communication. That is what I want to say. And last but not the least, which I personally also felt, was having patience. So this is a key when you deal with corporates. And in corporates, sometimes time may be longer, sometimes time may be lesser, but patience is the key when you can really interact. And corporates do build that relationship if they see that the startups are really persevering for their particular cause and they have got that conviction.
Right. So I think Ashutosh, message is very clear. The startups, when they actually look at partnering with corporates, they need to be nimble. They need to be, you know, go approach corporates with an open mind. Need to have patience. Let me just flip the same question and ask you a question that, to that extent, when as a corporate you are looking at partnering with startups, so which are the things that you take into consideration before making a decision whether to partner, from the business perspective, whether to do some kind of an investment, I think broadly, the partnership falls into these two categories. So which are the factors for a corporate when they have to look at partnering with startups?
Right. So the first one that comes to my mind is definitely the strategic fit. If I am evaluating a startup, then is it fitting my portions or servicing my product and services in the value chain? Like I gave an example of non-sugar businesses, or Zuari Foods, as we were going to call it later. We are going to enter into. So if a startup who I'm looking for is a fulfillment partner, then whether it fills my bucket of that value chain or not is one. Other example that I want to give was technological or digital innovations that we are looking at right now in services sector. For example, we need to have implementation of an HRMS, and an HRMS platform if somebody is already providing it and I need it. So that kind of requirement is definitely the first bucket strategic fit that comes in. The second part would be the team. How experienced is the team and how they have expanded. For example, one of your startups itself that entices me is Aliste. They have a unique business model of innovating home lighting systems and automating it. And they have a good team, bunch of people. They have good team to start off. They have got right resources in place to look at their business vertical. So team fit is what I look at, how they have structured that. Then third is, I would say, the market potential that it entails again. So for an agri-tech startup or for agriculture business, we are tapping, let's say, about 56,000 farmers in our GSML Gobind Sugar Mills. And for those farmers, we have developed an app called Saksham app. Now, this Saksham app actually helps them and us both to interact, to communicate, to disseminate information, to track record of their crop variety, soil condition, weather conditions updates, and what kind of yield or seed they would give. So any startup who has a potential to grow in this space, the agri space, what is the market potential that an app or a technological intervention brings in? And what is the problem that they're trying to solve? For example, subsidy payment by the government. So if some startup is there who has done some work in subsidy payments, regularizing them to the farmers, then automatically the scale is huge in a country like India. So that is what the third thing is. Fourth is financially where they stand. So if they are too occupied with already a lot of investments from multiple players, then probably it is a position for us that let's hold, because already multiple investments have happened, and multiple investments would mean that the management bandwidth that has been allocated within the startup itself is spread wide across, and the focus may not be there as such. The last portion, which I feel is definitely the cultural fit. So, if a startup has those values, mission defined within their business portfolio that they are going to carry forward, and it marries with us, which is they're not taking any shortcuts, which is that they are following the rule of law at all point of time, then it marries with the interest that we look at. So these are some of the framework, as I said: strategic fit, market potential, financials, teams, and cultural fit is what I look at when I evaluate, or my team evaluates a startup particularly.
No, absolutely. I fully agree with you, and that's an excellent analogy, as to how corporate needs to look at, when partnering with startups. So my follow-on question, and it's on the same line. You mentioned about the technology, the disruption. You mentioned about, how you have created an app which is basically integrating all the farmer community. Uh, the follow-on question is, where do you still see gaps which can be filled by, some new disruptive technology solution? And probably, if you can have some kind of an example to give, that will be really
Yeah.
interesting.
No, I see a lot of gaps. Being a technology enthusiast, I myself see a lot of gaps, even in my personal as well as professional life. So the industry where we are into, and first that I see is definitely agriculture. And you would reckon that agri-tech has grown multifold, right? When it was there since 2014 or even before that, to now what it is today. People are helping farmers to understand why crop or varietal replacement or soil condition is so important for them. Earlier it is purely driven by the economics, what the farmer can afford, but today farmers are also realizing that if we kind of switch our methods of planting a particular crop and go the more efficient way, it is benefiting themselves only, or because they are getting more yield per hectare, they are getting more output from that particular crop. So agriculture is one where a lot of innovation has to go, a lot of development has to go, and I see the only constraint there is somewhat that the person who is imbibing that technology needs to have some kind of funds, because still we are not there in terms of income that we see for farmers. The second space that I see, and at my end also we have done, that is business optimization tools for various businesses. And if I give you two examples of it directly from my business when I do it: Forte Furnitures. There is a furniture manufacturing company that we have. Now, what to produce, how to produce, how much to produce is dependent on how different verticals of the business are performing together. They may be excelling in their individual KPIs. For example, procurement is getting 10 on 10, sales is getting 10 on 10, and finance is also getting 10 on 10 on their individual KPIs. But as a whole in the business, are these silo fulfilling the overall objective? Do we have a tool to really see and optimize kind of, let's say, the output? Let's say if procurement needs to perform only at 9 on 10, then I get the business optimization at maximum level. So these kind of tools and business things that I see, other than the consumer space, particularly when I talk of agri direct to consumer, it B2B, which is relevant. Third, more important aspect is towards today climate change and sustainability, wherein we are also getting impacted by the weather patterns that are changing, and even government last week had set up a committee which is to look into the wheat crop manifestation over the time. So there a lot of startups can contribute. A lot of gap exists today where technology or data driven decision making can help build this or bridge this gap. Then fourth, you have also portrayed in your pitch day, which was cyber security. It is, and the warfare is now changing more towards internet space as we are going to technology. Cyber security is coming up uh, with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And there are a lot of gaps that still exist in the traditional corporations versus the corporations that are being set up new. So, for that matter, cybersecurity becomes one of the other spaces. Healthcare, I see a lot of advancement on the personal front, which requires. There was one startup which came across, which was doing blood samples in 1 hour, maybe, or blood reports in 1 hour. So that was amazing to me, and that was an eye opener that this kind of reports, if they come to hospitals, we can save so many patients on actually pre-diagnostic itself. So I think these are some of the areas that I feel. Education is largely one. Educom, already edtech companies have come over and they have started doing that. But more importantly, agri-tech, business optimization from B2B, sustainability, healthcare, and cybersecurity is what comes to my mind immediately.
Thanks. And Ashutosh, as you mentioned, I think so the blood sample or to that extent cybersecurity. I think so these are the themes at 100x we also follow. We basically try to identify, the startups who are working on similar kind of a gaps, developing solutions, which is not really, from the short-term perspective, but which really creates a long-term inroads, which cuts across the corporates, which cut across, entire geography and
Right.
create some kind of a solution which will help both at an individual level as well as at a corporate level, and they can participate to the growth journey. uh,
Right.
so the next question, I think so this is something which I keep asking everyone.
Hmm.
What's the mindset of corporate when it's partnering with startups, whether the corporates are really thinking that there should be a buy model in the sense that you really partner them, you ingrain the
Hmm.
startups and you take them into your fold, or you basically allow them, so you partner with them from the business perspective and you allow them to grow independently. What's the mindset you normally see when it comes to corporate?
So for me, personally, if you see building a solution or buying a solution, and we all have seen practically globally that what ChatGPT has done to us and what Bard has done to Google. So there is still a time lag between both of them to come over. Bard will come later. ChatGPT has already captured the market. So that is one of the analysis, directly build versus buy, when we see the impact of it. But from our perspective, or from my perspective, that I can say is that building would come into place when I want more control over maybe the design, the features, the specifications of the product or the service that I'm going to do. And I take direct example of Zuari Management Services Limited. So if we have an executive search option and we are fulfilling that, so that is niche to my expertise or skill set that I possess in my team. That is not specific that I can buy from outside. And I can obviously get resources, but that resources have to work with me within the company to build and understand the culture of the company, and then how we will fulfill the demand in the market. So there, that is where I would come with the buying solution, build solution, sorry, if I have to look at it, so that I can tailor it to my needs. I have time, I have time to invest in technology, and I want to see the technology grow. That is the business objective where I would do that. While for buying, again, if I have to, let's say, build a data visualization page or MIS reports, or even for the businesses to integrate, I'll get solutions from outside and I will do that. But again, the larger question that you asked, whether you would go for build versus buy, will specifically depend on the use case that we look at, or with the type of products or services that I try to entail. If I have time and I see that this is core strength to my business and I want to augment it, then definitely it is a build option that I want to go with. If it is an option wherein I want to quickly implement a technology solution rather than starting from scratch. I don't have bandwidth, but I want to experiment, I want to test it. Go for the buying option. And that is where we take those decisions in those fashion at Zuari as well. But again, with the rider, that these decisions are perfectly use case specific, and we are very very careful when it comes to the risk cost benefits across both the build versus buy option. And they have we should have necessary talent and infrastructure also to evaluate these kinds of options when we do that.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I think so. Any decision making, be it build or buy, there has to be. There are various touch points within the organization itself, and you have to factor in all those before a decision is taken. But yes, rightly put in, there is a case to case basis, where there is a decision to be taken on build versus buy. Uh, Ashutosh, next question. Indian startup economy is developing exponentially. Every day we are seeing more and more startups coming into joining the ecosystem with some kind of a disruptive technology, some kind of a disruptive idea. No, what's your prediction about the Indian startup ecosystem? At least for next 3 years or next 5 years. Where do you see and how do you see the collaboration happening going forward?
See, on a lighter note, Utpal, I think I have made prediction models using data, but not an astrologer thing that I have achieved till now. And this is, I think, it is a question for Sanjay, even which is more, who is more experienced to answer this. But I see that the startup ecosystem has already created a buzz long ago, and now, as I repeat myself, that they have ingrained themselves in the Indian business function or family, as I would call it. So no corporates today are looking at surviving alone without a startup. So there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of business options to grow. For our case, business optimization, data driven decision making, integrating all the functions together, then really fulfilling the customer at their end, creating value for the customer, enhancing their experiences. And some people are also coming up with metaverse. So for future, customers will pay only if they feel that they are a part of the journey which we are manufacturing or providing a service as. It is not just like you can go and buy a product, then the customer will feel happy about it and it will repeat your sales. It is only when you give him that kind of an experience, even after sales service, that the startup ecosystem can really survive. And with the corporates having that bandwidth or the market segmentation that they enjoy, I think the growth potential for startups is only to look at where the corporates are today and what problems particularly they can solve. And when they do it, automatically the synergies blend in, and that is where they grow. So in future, I see a lot of synergies between both of us together when we grow along.
Right, right. Thanks. I think so. Ashutosh rightly put in. I think this question is, from all the perspective, people who are basically into the whole startup ecosystem versus people who are, from the corporate side who are looking at partnering with the startup
Right.
ecosystem, and the future prediction is from both the perspective. So,
Right.
Ashutosh, probably I'll just end by asking a last question. Your experience of dealing with multiple startups, both from business integration perspective, looking at some kind of a synergies.
Yes.
What's your key takeaways? Some kind of a thoughts that you would like to share for the startups, emerging startups who are basically looking upon corporates from the guidance perspective.
Basically, Utpal, what I would like to say is that we startups do have a lot of plan, but sometimes we need to test and execute those plans. So execution for me, as I have seen from the startups, is very very important when they are looking to invite customers to their platform, like us or even the direct consumers. Or other piece could be while they are executing, they have to scale it up. So my piece of take on, or I would suggest startups. By the way, I am suggesting one of the startup. I'm mentoring them in EV charging infra space, and so what I tend to do with them, and I will tell that here also, uh, is that you look at things of developing a proof of concept. When that proof of concept has been realized at hand as a product or a service, then you need to look at what kind of feedback is coming in. And that feedback, if we incorporate for a very small period of time and correcting our mistakes on that product or a service, then it becomes a full-fledged product to go into the market, launch it, customers will engage. So being in the customer's shoes every time is very, very important when you are building a product, and not just get in love with what we have built and what we cannot customize it any further. So this is one principle I would say that I always adopt when I tell people or startup that if you have a product, be in the customer's shoes, that why they should be buying it, why they should be utilizing your services. So in that sense, this is the only way to succeed, because then you will get answers to all the questions, and once you have that right, everything else falls in place.
No, absolutely. Rightly put. And I think so startups also need to understand that what they're developing should have a market for that, for a customer preference for that, unless until you develop those kind of services, it becomes very difficult. Both, probably collaborating with corporates or to that extent, grow from, 0 to 1. So, very, very aptly put, all your suggestions, all your views, Ashutosh. Thank you very much for giving a complete insight. It's not just from, looking at how corporates can think on collaborating with startups, but how startups also need to look at it when they actually look at collaborating with, corporates. So thank you very much for your time today. And, it was really an interesting session.
Thank you so much, Utpal. And I think I was able to speak my mind, and you given me this opportunity to interact with so many people. And I think the CVC and CIP program that you are having at 100x.vc is one of its kind, where people can really foresee their dreams to fulfill, provided they have the right kind of attitude, mindset, and market potential for the product and services that they have created. So thank you so much once again for this wonderful interaction.
Thank you, Ashutosh. At 100x, it's our effort to bring, the startups and corporates together, be it in terms of corporate venture capital or through the corporate innovation programs. And, our journey will continue. We see a lot of synergy, a lot of partnership translating into success stories, what we have seen globally. I think so it's the right time for India to create those kind of a success stories.
Right.
And
Thank
thank you,
you.
everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this session. Stay tuned. Look forward to see you again on the next Namaste tomorrow. Have a good
Thank you.
weekend. Thank you.